Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. The Forbidden City, also known as the Imperial Palace, was the royal residence of the Ming and Qing dynasties in China. It is one of the best preserved and largest wooden architectural complexes in the world, standing as a witness to the glorious history of China's feudal dynasties over several centuries. In 1925, the Forbidden City, once a royal residence, was opened to the public for the first time. Today, the Palace Museum has become an iconic landmark in Beijing, attracting thousands of visitors annually, no longer a mysterious and inaccessible place. However, despite the fact that the Forbidden City is no longer an unreachable space for most ordinary people, there are still areas that remain closed to the public. The most mysterious of these is the Forbidden City's Cold Palace. So, why has the Cold Palace of the Forbidden City never been open to the public? What hidden secrets lie behind it? Let's explore and take you into this mysterious place to uncover the story of the Forbidden City's Cold Palace. First, where exactly is the Cold Palace in the Forbidden City? In ancient times, the Cold Palace typically referred to a place within the Imperial Palace where neglected concubines or princes were kept. Many historical dramas depict scenes where a concubine is sent to the Cold Palace. The Chinese historical drama Empresses in the Palace describes the Cold Palace as follows: countless tiny dust particles rushed toward her, fluttering in the faint golden sunlight. And under the dilapidated eaves, the sound of residual rainwater dripping could be heard. The air was filled with a faint smell of decay and the damp, musty odor. This vivid description captures the Cold Palace's sense of solitude, chilliness, and decay, leading viewers to believe that such a place must exist within the Forbidden City. In reality, however, the Forbidden City was not originally designed with a designated Cold Palace. In the fourth year of the Yongle reign of the Ming dynasty, Emperor Zhu Di ordered the design of the Imperial City in Beijing, following the layout of the Nanjing Imperial City, which later became the Forbidden City. In ancient imperial palace design, there was a concept of 3 palaces, 6 courts, and 72 concubines. The design of the Forbidden City included the 3 palaces, the Qianqing Palace, the Jiaotai Hall, and the Kunming Palace, and the 6 courts, the Zhai Palace, Jingren Palace, Qingqian Palace, Zhongsui Palace, Jingyang Palace, and Yonghe Palace. However, none of these palaces were specifically referred to as the Cold Palace. According to the history of the Ming dynasty and draft history of the Qing dynasty, after the Forbidden City was mostly completed, no emperor particularly added a palace called the Cold Palace. In fact, the term Cold Palace seems more like a creation of folk novels or legends. For example, in the annals of the Eastern Zhou kingdoms from the Ming dynasty, there is a similar mention. It is said that Lord Shen was in the city and saw a fire break out in the palace. He quickly called his troops to put it out. First, they sent Lady Shen and moved her out of the Cold Palace. In the 3 heroes and 5 gallants from the Jiaqing period of the Qing dynasty, the Cold Palace is also mentioned. Who knew that Lady Lu had caused a miscarriage with her actions? The emperor, in great anger, demoted Lady Li to the Cold Palace. Although the term Cold Palace was never officially used as a palace name in history, it does reflect the fact that there were places in the Forbidden City used to imprison neglected concubines or princes. However, these places were not specifically marked as Cold Palaces and had no fixed or defined locations. As previously mentioned, the design of the Forbidden City was influenced by the Ming dynasty's Nanjing Imperial City. In fact, during the Ming dynasty, a place similar to the Cold Palace already existed in Nanjing. Located north of the Huiqing Bridge in Jinling, Nanjing, there was a palace called Shaoyao Tower. It is said that Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang, when establishing the national holiday system, set the rule that government officials in the Ming dynasty only had 3 days off per year, during the spring festival, winter solstice, and the emperor's birthday. if an official was caught idling or walking pets on the streets during non-holidays, he would be sent to the Xiaoyao Tower to starve to death. Although the Xiaoyao Tower no longer existed after Emperor Zhu Di moved the capital to Beijing and built the Forbidden City, a palace named Xiaoyao Palace remained in the Forbidden City. Many later historians speculate that this Xiaoyao Palace might have been the precursor to the Cold Palace in the Forbidden City. As Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang perfected the country's holiday system and the bureaucratic punishment system matured, the palaces used for imprisoning neglected concubines and corrupt ministers gradually faded from history. In their place, the Cold Palace as we know it today emerged. This Cold Palace was typically used to house concubines who had fallen out of favor, especially those who had angered powerful ministers or the emperor. During the late Ming dynasty, under the reign of Emperor Tianqi, the emperor's favorite concubine, Lady Li, offended the powerful eunuch Wei Zhongxian. As a result, she was exiled from Changchun Palace to the Qianxi area on the western side of the Imperial Garden in the Forbidden City, where she remained for 4 years. Additionally, other concubines such as concubine Ding, consort Ding, and noble consort Ku were also exiled to Qianxi, making it, in a sense, the Cold Palace of the late Ming dynasty. After the establishment of the Qing dynasty, the Cold Palace still existed in the Forbidden City. On September 21, 1898, Empress Dowager Cixi launched the 100 Days Reform, and Emperor Guangxu was imprisoned at the Yingtai. His favored concubine, Zheng He, was confined to the North Three Halls of the Forbidden City, which is located to the west of the Zheng He Well and behind the Mountain Gate. Therefore, the North Three Halls can be considered a cold palace during the late Qing dynasty. So, why have these historically significant areas, once used as cold palaces, not been open to the public in today's Palace Museum? In fact, with the restoration of the Forbidden City by a group of cultural relic experts after 1949, the palace gradually regained its former glory. In 1987, the Forbidden City was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was renamed the Palace Museum. Since then, the museum began to gradually open more areas to the public. However, even today, the North Three Halls and other late Qing dynasty cold palaces remain closed to visitors. What is the reason behind this? In particular, why hasn't the Palace Museum opened certain historical sites? There are various speculations among the public. One of the most mysterious theories is that the North Three Halls is considered to be a place filled with negative energy. According to folklore, many disgraced concubines and princes were abandoned there to live out their days in solitude, ultimately dying in sorrow and misery. Their restless spirits have never found peace, and thus the North Three Halls is said to be surrounded by grievance and resentment. Some elderly Beijingers who lived near the Forbidden City even claimed to have heard cries coming from the North Three Halls at night, with the sounds being heart-wrenching, as if the vengeful spirits were lamenting their unfinished grievances. This is one of the speculated reasons why the Palace Museum has not opened the North Three Halls to the public. However, this theory of vengeful spirits is clearly unfounded, as there is no concrete historical evidence to support such rumors. So, what is the true reason behind the continued closure of the North Three Halls? The late Qing Emperor Puyi, in his memoirs, provides the answer. The Xinhai Revolution broke out on October 10, 1911, marking the fall of the Qing dynasty. On February 12, 1912, under pressure from Yuan Shikai and others, Emperor Puyi was forced to sign the Abdication Edict, officially ending the 277-year reign of the Qing dynasty. However, after the fall of the Qing dynasty, Puyi and the Manchu royal family were not immediately expelled from the Forbidden City. In fact, before Puyi abdicated, the Qing dynasty signed an agreement with the Provisional Government of the Republic of China in Nanjing, known as the Conditions for the Favorable Treatment of the Qing Imperial Family. According to this agreement, Although the Qing dynasty had fallen, Puyi and his family were allowed to continue living in the Forbidden City. And the Republic of China government would allocate $4 million silver annually to support their living expenses. At the age of only 6, Puyi, though he had abdicated, remained in the Forbidden City. As a result, he left a deep impression of the grandeur of the palace and its court life. Although the Republic of China government allocated $4 million silver annually to the Manchu royal family, an amount that would be considered substantial today, it was far from sufficient to maintain the former lavish lifestyle of the Forbidden City, which had been in operation for centuries and housed a vast court. While the daily life of the royal family could still be sustained, this funding was no longer enough to support the luxurious banquets or large-scale palace repairs as it had in the past. After Puyi's abdication, the North Three Palaces, in the Forbidden City, once used to confine disgraced concubines, had lost their practical function. As the finances of the Manchu royal family became increasingly strained, places like the North Three Palaces gradually became abandoned corners of the palace. In his memoirs, Puyi mentioned that by the time he ascended the throne, the North Three Palaces were already in a dilapidated state, and after his abdication, they fell further into disrepair, with overgrown weeds and a complete lack of attention. This desolate and dilapidated place, even by today's standards, holds almost no value as a tourist attraction. Since Puyi's abdication, no more palace women were sent to the Cold Palace, and the North Three Palaces became an empty, deserted place with no valuable artifacts left behind. Therefore, from an archaeological perspective, the so-called Cold Palace no longer holds any special historical value. On October 23, 1924, Feng Yuxiang led an army into Beijing and carried out the famous Beijing coup, reinstating the regulations for the preferential treatment of the Qing court. This meant that Puyi and his family were completely expelled from the Forbidden City. Soon after, the Forbidden City was opened to the public for the first time. However, by this time, the North Three Palaces had suffered from long-term neglect and war, with some buildings collapsed and turned into an abandoned ruin. In 1949, a team of skilled artifact restoration experts visited the North Three Palaces in the Forbidden City, but they found no valuable artifacts there. Due to the aged and deteriorated condition of the buildings near the North Three Palaces, large crowds of visitors could potentially cause the buildings to collapse. Considering factors such as cultural value and visitor safety, the Palace Museum, which changed its name in 1987, has not opened this area to tourists. According to relevant historians, the deep, silent environment of the Forbidden City's Cold Palace reflected the absolute control of life and death that emperors in feudal society had over women. Its decay and collapse symbolized the decline of imperial power and the disintegration of the feudal system in modern society. The resentment and size of the palace women who spent their lives in the Cold Palace have long since merged with the decaying walls of the city, becoming fragments of dreams that drift through the passage of time. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.